Hi, everyone. It's me, Krylios, Team Racing Productions MC and producer. And joining me today is William Keiser. Welcome.
Hi, Krylios.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm doing great. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. It is great to have you here with me today. It's great to have a good chat. And I want to start it off with having you introduce yourself to our viewers and give us a little bit about your background and experience.
Sure. Okay, so I'm William. I was a dancer for many years. That's pretty much my background. And I started podcasting with an interview podcast when I moved to Washington, D.C. 2 years ago. And then I transitioned. I really wanted to do a narrative podcast, and that's why I'm here.
Awesome. Well, talk to me about this podcast. How did you come up with the idea? What message were you trying to put out there? And how has it been working on the podcast?
So the podcast is, first thing I want to say before I mess up anymore is that I get really nervous speaking in front of people. And knowing that anyone sees me, and that's partly why I wanted to do a scripted narrative podcast. So this podcast is about like LGBTQ communities in DC, and about like kind of hidden inequalities that exist. So just people's experience. I wanted to just highlight different people's experiences within different scenes, and just kind of talk about like my experience living in DC and like just experiencing so much, feeling so much. Yeah, I just wanted to express.
And enlighten me, what has your experience been like in the LGBTQ scene here in DC? Especially since you are, I wouldn't say new, but fairly new.
Yeah.
To the city. What's that experience been like, and how does it differ from what you've experienced before?
Yeah. So DC was the first city where I like explored the scene for myself, and made LGBT friends and like came out of my shell. And so it's hard for me to compare it to other places because I didn't do that in those other places. But my experience was like, I'm kind of like a magnet for negativity. Like in other words, like, I don't know. I see things that other people are trying to like sweep under the rug a lot. And I'm interested in them and I'm curious about them. And so I joined LGBT Kickball, and one of my best friends, he's anonymous in the podcast, but he's a team captain, and he took me through his life experience kind of. And like, I learned a lot from him, from when he was a DJ at this queer club in Baltimore, to like joining kickball in DC, to having so much trouble dating and making friends. And I don't know, I just, through him and also through like my own experiences, I experienced something very difficult in April, like where, what I wanted done was not respected, in a sexual encounter. And, it's such a sex positive community, which is great. But the other side of that is that when something bad happens, you can't talk about it. Nobody wants to hear that. And so I just wanted to like discuss those things and go into them in more detail.
And how did you come up with the title, the choice for the title, Popular? When I read it, I kept singing, I want to be popular the whole time. What made you come up with that title?
Okay, so that title is like very central to the podcast, because that's the lens through which I conduct this inquiry. Is like, we all came from somewhere. We all came from schools mostly, where there was some sort of pecking order, and humans, we establish our hierarchies very young, it's just something that we do. And as adults, it becomes a problem because it's tied to money and power and who gets to live freely and all of these other things. But we rarely take it back to how kids treat each other. And what I was experiencing in the LGBTQ community, like in kickball, on the scene, in the bars, like talking to people, was very similar to what I felt in high school, where there was a caste system and I was not I had an opportunity to advance, but unless I changed myself pretty fundamentally and changed my values and changed the way I looked, this time I had a little bit more access to it because it wasn't homophobic in the same exact way, but it definitely was transphobic. It definitely was femphobic. So, yeah.
Wow. And where are you originally from? Before
I'm
you
from
got to
Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
I see. I
Yeah.
see. And so you said you didn't really experience the scene in Fort Lauderdale.
I did for a few months before I moved to DC, and it was very different. Have you been to Fort Lauderdale?
I have not been to Fort Lauderdale. I have a lot of family that's been there. It's low-key Jamaica, the second. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, it's giving that. So I have a lot of family and friends who live there, who go there a lot, but I personally haven't been. As a matter of fact, my mom is going there like next week.
Oh, really?
So yeah, but I personally have never been. Okay, so what has the response been like so far to the podcast from your friends, family, or just other queer people in DC? What has that response
Yeah.
been like?
That's such an interesting question, Krylios, because it's just been very varied. Like, I think my friends for the most part liked it. My family didn't get it or care, but they, I think they would prefer that I don't, that I just don't, and just remain like the person that I was, I guess. But the people that I made the podcast with, like the people who shared their stories with me, I think they all pretty much appreciate it. Like if they didn't, they didn't tell me. And the ones that did, and a lot of I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that feel like, I think that they feel like I care, and that they're being elevated as opposed to exploited, hopefully. At least the ones who reached out to me definitely felt that way. There are also people who have reached out to, say negative things and say, if this paints with too broad a brush, it lumps too many people in together. Someone reached out to me who he's not in the category of what I call in the podcast Vita gays, but he's adjacent to it, a nice guy, and he kind of conveyed his displeasure at the lumping and the broad brush, and he said, you're not going to open anyone's eyes with this podcast. You're not going to reach those people. And so the responses have been interesting. I'm not altogether displeased when people have a strong reaction to it. I think it's good.
Yes. I mean, I create something if not to have a reaction.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that. I love that. You have something to say. I want to ask about the House of Bambi. Tell me about it.
Oh my God. So House of Bambi, everyone should look up Robert Woofter. He created it, and Greg David and all of these other amazing performers who perform. But basically, House of Bambi is a production house based in DC. They mostly do dance performances and films, and parties and events, mostly queer centric, invested in gender euphoria, just really good vibes and also gorgeous aesthetics. And Robert was my mentor for this project, and House of Bambi took it on.
Oh, fabulous. And what's your involvement with the Gay and Lesbian Review?
Yeah, so I had worked with them very briefly before, or we tossed around ideas and it didn't come to fruition. And then for this, I basically just pitched them a podcast platform. They didn't have any podcasts, and they were interested, and they were interested in hosting it. And the Gay and Lesbian Review was started in 1994, and they basically gave a platform to mostly the gay white male writers of that generation. and the AIDS generation and the kind of like the lost generation and the people who survived.
Mhm.
And so they're historic, like they're like a part of LGBT history, and they haven't necessarily fully um, fully bridged the gap into the 21st century, like fully embraced technology in the way that I think they could. And so I also really wanted to work with them to to breathe some new young whippersnapper life into their platform.
I love that. Well, you love creating a narrative. You love writing. Where do you want to continue taking that into the future? And what stories and themes and aesthetics are you looking to explore as you do that?
So I'm also like a screenwriter. That's my main career.
Mm-hmm.
I'm working on a reality show now, and I'm writing teen dramas. That's my favorite
Mm.
genre. I'm obsessed. And I'm writing one
You
right
were
now.
were you a Gossip Girl, a 90210 girl? Like,
All of the above. Gossip
okay,
Girl,
great.
absolutely. My favorite is Elite, the Spanish
Oh
one. Have
yeah.
you
Oh
seen it?
God, Elite is my
It's
jam.
so good. It's wildly good. And right now, Euphoria is like blowing my
Yes.
mind
Mm-hmm,
every Sunday
mm-hmm.
night.
I love that.
Um, so yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I'm writing those
Mm-hmm.
things, and I write. So I was a dancer, as you know,
Yeah.
before becoming a screenwriter and or like a choreographer. And um, so right now I'm writing these teen dramedies that incorporate dance. Like I'm writing one right now about like the 1930s.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and this like community of leftist artists living in New York City who, because in the 30s ballet was very different than it is now. It was like as big as cinema, and but just
Mm-hmm.
kind of more loved by the high art establishment. And so I kind of want to breathe new life into that art form too.
Okay, awesome, awesome. I like that. I like hearing that. Well, sorry. How can people, follow you, keep up with anything you're doing, find out more? You shameless plug every way people can follow you.
Um, yeah, you can follow me at also, this is how to follow the Gay and Lesbian Review and House of
Mhm.
Bambi, which I urge you to do. There's so much intellectual content coming out all the time. And then to follow me, as you can see, I'm on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok. Kaiser Wilhelm is kind of the handle for two of them.
Mhm.
Love TikTok. Got shadow banned. That was fun. Um, but yeah, you can follow me on social media. And I also have a website, williamskeiser.com.
Okay, great. We're gonna have that link in the description below so everyone can go ahead and check that out and keep up with what William is doing. Before I let you go, now that you've been in DC for 2 years, you have experienced so many things. Has it for you, do you think it's been a great decision to be in DC? Is it more positive than negative? What's your entire feeling on, DC, the queer community here, and what your future may look like here?
So, full disclosure, I moved away from DC in September. So, I'm in
Oh.
pursuing screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I didn't move because I hate DC or something. I moved because I had another opportunity elsewhere. And also because it is difficult to be a screenwriter and live in Washington
Mm-hmm.
unless you have connections already. But my feeling about DC as a city, first of all, I love DC. Like I think DC is an incredible place with incredible communities and people. Um, like I worked for the Dance Institute of Washington for 2 years. That is
Mm-hmm.
a gem of DC. Like people like that, people who believe they can change the world and use data to prove that they can. That's so inspiring to me. I think it was definitely a great decision to go to DC. It was an education. DC also has a lot of things to improve upon. Like it's just I don't know if this will ever happen in my lifetime, but um, it just the conformity isn't just a matter of aesthetic taste. Like, it's also an exclusionary philosophy that impacts people on every level. And until DC like embraces its lowest ranked community members, like all of those decisions filter into even the way the entire country is governed, like into the way these nonprofits are run. Like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. That's kind of what I believe. I think all it takes is like one or two courageous people in every circumstance to like actually make change socially. Yeah. So that's what I
Awesome,
think.
awesome. Well, thank you, William, for joining me today. It has been such a pleasure to chat with you, to get to know you more, and to just pick your brain. So thanks so much for being here. It's really such a pleasure.
Thank you, Krylios. It has been so nice to meet you too.
Thank you. To those who are watching, please follow Team Racing Productions on all forms of social media at Team Racing. Like, comment, and subscribe. But most of all, thank you for watching. Bye, everyone.